much more to talk to. I talked about many, many things. You remember the diagram about all the structure you need to actually support free-to-play, like support community management, advertising, analytics, and so on. About every single topic there, I could talk to you about a week, and I still haven't finished. This is, how complex the whole thing is. So the one thing we are concentrating here upon is game design, free-to-play, what you have to basically do in order to make good free-to-play games. This is why I'm here for. So we actually stopped a slide after that. What this is a 3-pillar model I developed to guarantee good free-to-play games. Guarantee in quotes. Why we do this, I explain after I went through all these 3 pillars. So again, the 3 pillars is the game mechanics themselves. This is basically what the designers and the programmers put into the game, what you monetize. It's monetizing time, monetizing progress, whatever you do. We have the in-game roles. I'll repeat myself from last time. Players who play online games behave differently inside the game than in real life. I can give you a very good example. I played a game where it was allowed to kill other players for whatever reason. So you just walked around, bam, you're dead. There was a score to be kept, and basically you turned evil, right? There were good and evil players, and it was marked on top of their heads. The game was Ultima Online, in case you remember that. The most evil players with the most kills were, in real life, policemen, doctors, fireworkers. Why is that? You can read studies why that is. It's basically a compensation for the choice you did in real life. There has been psychological studies about that basically we grow up at the moment in a time, and we are really lucky that we're in this time, that you can do whatever you want. You grew up, and your dad asks you, what do you want to be when you grow up? And you could just pick. You just said astronaut. Couple of decades before, you had to do the job your dad had because of the inheritance. So basically, this choice you have at some point, you fix, right? You say, I want to be a policeman. So you're a policeman, and this choice fixes you in terms of your behavior. So to compensate this, you misbehave in the online game because it doesn't hurt. This is very easily explains the psychological reason why the in-game behavior of humans has to be separated from the human being himself, which is on the right side. Basically, how do you monetize the human himself who's sitting in front of the computer? And I explained that you in several steps. So the first thing, game mechanics, I just took one example out of it, which is basically the progress. You remember, in our games, all our free-to-play games must have leveling, no exception. Leveling means progress means unlocks, progress means progress acceleration, all sorts of stuff you can sell. Many good examples, just play any MMORPG you find, like Runes of Magic, or any free-to-play game like Aeon, whatever you find, and look in their shop, and you see bam, a lot of progress, monetization there. So this is like the easy stuff. Now the next, this is just the stuff I went through, like early, mid, end game, the unlocks you can sell, the accelerators you can sell, and of course time, because everything in the rule we apply to a game is that everything in the game itself, the player must invest skill, time, or money. Okay, again, he can pick one of those 3, skill, time, or money. So there's something he builds, it costs time. So he just build it and it costs time, right? But if you have money, you can bam, instant build it, so he can invest this. And if he's very skillful, he can optimize actually his build time and have something coming out of that. This is basically the time mechanics you find in many, many games. And so forth. Just look at the games and you will see that all this progress stuff is actually the number one thing they usually monetize. Now we go to the in-game roles, so the behavior of people inside the game itself. There is a guy called Dr. Richard Bartle who examined the in-game behavior of people in online games 35 years ago. Now at least I expect one hand to raise and say, that's a lie. How can he analyze online game behavior 35 years ago when internet wasn't even invented? Yes? Again?
He analyzed tabletop roleplay.
No, he did not. Okay.
Mods, multiplayer user,
Yes, that's the one. They invented at the University of Essex a game called MUDS, Multi-User Dungeons. The University of Essex was one proud university owning a VAX computer machine. If you don't know what that is, you can Google it. The VAX computer machine is as big as this room. This was like the huge computer connected to over 200 cables, and at the end of this cable was a stupid screen displaying the characters like this, and there was a keyboard on top. So stupid terminals attached to one big computer. They developed a game, text-based, which 200 people could play in the same world. It was the first massive multiplayer online game of this world. And when they activated the game, it was students who did this, right? So they developed this game, and it was hugely successful. So successful that half of the students, the professor was sitting in front of his class, and half of the class was sleeping. And the professor asked himself, what's wrong, right? And he found out that half of the audience was actually playing this game all the time. And it spread through all the other universities who had this machine, the VAX machine, and the same thing happened. People were totally addicted to that online thing. And then this professor actually taught some of his students who wrote this game and said, listen, can you examine as part of your master's thesis why these people actually play this game all the time? And one of his students was Dr. Richard Bartle. And he basically did his doctor by studying online behavior. And he found out that there are 4 major roles players accept inside the game. And this is the Achiever, Explorer, Killer, and Socializer. There are certain different words floating around, but that basically describes them really well. And there's a 5th one, which is a trader. I defined simply because back then the game didn't have economies. But now we have economies in games, and so there's a new role called the trader. So, who is the Achiever? The Achiever is someone who enters your game, and he wants to achieve everything you give him in the game. Every goal, every quest, every monster he should slay. This is his goal. And he also wants to kind of show off his achievements, He wants to achieve, and other people look up at him and say, wow, I want to be as good as you are at some point. Very typical player profile. Many in this room might have that, specifically males under 25. This is the major role they usually go into. They want to see the missing achievements, and of course what you can monetize here is the progress of that guy. You want to progress really fast, really optimum. You want to reach the end level of the game and want to slay the end boss and have the biggest sword. This is like the biggest achievement he can have. This is where he goes to. The Explorer. The Explorer is slightly different. What he wants to do is that he wants to see every aspect of your game. He's not in the game to achieve everything. No, he wants to see everything. All the monsters, all the landscapes, all the levels, all the challenges, he at least wants to experience that once so that he sees like how the game is like. He's the most difficult guy to support in your game, simply because not many games on iOS, on iPhone, or free-to-play games actually have exploration inside. If you want to see a game serving the Explorer nearly perfectly, you should play Guild Wars 2. Guild Wars 2, $50, buy it, it's free MMO, you play it, and the Explorer is very well supported in this game. And in a free-to-play game, he's easy to monetize once you know how he works. So for us, in our game, we have one island you settle upon. This is basically yours. It's like in every iOS game where you build stuff, you have this one area. But what we allow is that you can actually hire an explorer. Explorer, you get it? Okay, so you hire an explorer specialist, and you can click on him and tell him, listen, go out, find adventures. So he returns after 6 hours and says, look, boss, I found an adventure. And you can start the adventure. It's a new map. You can beat the enemies there, and if you did it, you get loot, treasure, and everything, and the adventure is gone. So the explorer is key to find adventures, and because there are like 30 different adventures in the game, and they're random to find with different chances, they are rare adventures. So the explorer needs days, if not months, to have seen all the adventures, because he gets this map. So this is how we actually monetize this guy. If you cannot find certain specific rare adventures, of course, what can he do to find them? What can an explorer in our game actually do to find adventures which are really hard to find? Come on. Yes?
Perhaps pay to somehow encourage his explorer to explore faster?
Yes, explore faster, we have that. So there's a button, yeah, good answer. There's a button, 6 hours it takes, there's a button half the time. So you click it and bam, 3 hours. You can click it again, bam, 1.5 hours. You can click it again, 45 minutes. Click it again, 21. Click again, 10. You see, it's never instant. So what do payers do? They kind of machine gun the button. And then 3 seconds, and then they wait. Or, I bet that's the other answer. You directly go into the shop and buy the damned adventure. Yes, you can do that. So this is just some examples how you can do this, right? And it's not evil because, hey, you can buy for it, but you can also find it for free. Or if you have good skill and have like many explorers and, random chances and stuff, you can actually get them. Or you go into trade and just buy it from another player. You can do that as well. So next thing, the killer. The killer is the most misunderstood guy, but basically he has PvP on his head, player versus player. The killer, he doesn't care about your game much, about the challenges you give him. He wants to be better than another player. This is his key motivation. He wants to be better than another player. He wants to measure his skills against another player in the game, right? And this is a conflict, this is like PvP. And the problem is that most players, even in this audience, don't want PvP. Most of you don't want PvP. It's a really small, vocal audience who wants that. 20% in the Western world want PvP. And from this 20%, most of them are male dominant. Like, it's our job to actually slay things, to feed our family and wife. This is like in our genes. So male, younger than 25, usually is PvP dominated. The problem is that when you have PvP in your game, 80% of the players are upset. There are 2 people killing each other in my game, I don't want to see this. This is really happening. So what many games do is that they isolate PvP in a container. So if you want to learn how that works, you play World of Warcraft. World of Warcraft is a very good PvE game, so you can cooperate, guilds, clans, whatever. And some people go into arenas, which are isolated, and PvP there. And if you don't want that, you don't even see it. This is the ideal version of how you do PvP in the Western world. In Asia, 80% of the players want PvP. And they want mass PvP. If you have ever seen an Asian or a Korean MMO where they do PvP, this is like, I explain you one picture, okay? So it's 5 minutes before 10 o'clock. There are leaders standing in order, and there are like 1,000 players taking up formation behind that leader in squares, okay? The same happens on the other side. Every single figure, I'm telling you, is a player, okay? So there's these leaders and generals sitting there coordinating their 100 players to go into a perfect square. So they're sitting there, across each other, 2,000 players, all like waiting, 10 o'clock, bam, and then they run to each other and fight, and everything is dead, and whoever wins. Huge coordinated fights, and whoever wins owns the territory and can himself call the king of that country. This is how in Asia they do mass-scale, huge PvP stuff. It's awesome. It will be here at some point, right? But currently, the Westerners do PvP, put 20 Western people here, to put 20 Western people here, and they just clash in random battle, and whoever wins, has that. Very chaotic, which is strange. So basically, this guy is a PvP guy, right? And for him, basically, pimp me is the key to monetization. Pimp me means make me more mighty, make me more powerful, right? Give me the bigger sword, the better armor, etc. He's most often confused with the achiever. The socializer. The socializer is key to retention to your game. What he does not play your game because of your game mechanics. He does play your game because he wants to talk to other people. He wants to socialize. So for him, the most important thing is chat, friends list, no guilds, clans, guild achievements, how he looks, all this stuff is really important for the socializer. Most of the socializers are women. And to be honest, and I talk truth here, the more women you have in your game, the more men will stay with your game. That's natural, right? World of Warcraft, coordinated is the wrong word. World of Warcraft caused more marriages in this world than the biggest single dating site. Should get you thinking. Like, 10% of my friends met themselves and married in World of Warcraft, okay? So here, but there are certain social types, right? I wrote it here. There's a complainer, the flirter, the troll. If you ever want to learn about that, join any MMORPG or talk to community managers. Community managers are awesome people who can explain you how socializers work and how you can actually use that to your advantage. When he plays due to his friends, or you basically have to put in really good social systems. And when he puts the social systems in the game, he can also monetize it in a certain way. Let's say you limit your friends list to 30 people. And if you want more, you basically have to pay a little bit. Or if you want to have a private chat channel just for you, you can do that. You never give something away for free, by the way, right? You don't give free chat channels to people. What you do is that, you limit that, and if you want more, you might actually have to pay. You can pay for smileys. I can tell you one example, the most awesome socializer item I have ever seen. It appeared in Meeting 2, which is one of the most successful, largest MMORPGs in Europe, and you don't know even, no one played here. Who did play Meeting 2? See? 8 million players, and you don't even know this game exists. They have an item which is a mute item. Okay, I can buy that. It's like a couple of cents each. And in global chat, where everybody can chat, usually hell is breaking loose all the time, right? But some people actually want to talk about serious issues. So all these people upsetting them, the trolls, are like disturbing their conversation. So the mute button mutes this player for 1 day. And in the chat it says, Teut muted Charlie for 1 day. So, and everybody's like, very good, you muted this guy. And I paid money to mute him for a day. So this item was really successful for several reasons. First, they made money with it. Second, the chat moderated itself. Trolls were silent because they were afraid to be muted for a day by other players. Awesome, really awesome. The trader. The trader is someone who doesn't play your game, he plays your economy in your game, if you have an economy in your game. Most games should have an economy, but is that someone who had a question?
I wanted to ask about this mute thing. Could the trolls also then just mute random players, troll them?
Yes, you can mute random players. It's the best thing ever for your revenue. There are like thousands of people in the chat. If you want to mute them all, which you could try, a rich player could mute the whole server. And that would be a huge event, and everybody would talk about it for years. You know how much that cost? It's about €1,000. That's cool. Yeah, you could do this. It's a challenge. Yeah. It's funny if you think about it, right? Whoever invented this item is a genius. So basically, the trader plays your economy. For our games, all our games have to have an economy. Basically, because economies are so easy to monetize. So that's the reason why the trader really loves our games. So the trader basically plays the economy of the game and wants to be filthy rich. This is his power. His power is, in World of Warcraft, he owns all the items. Everybody who played World of Warcraft knows one of these guys, right? If I need that rare metal to forge my hammer, I just ask Charlie. Charlie has everything. This is the guy. With 120,000 gold and the largest banks and all the rare stuff in his bank. And they brag about it by making screenshots of all of his bags open and post it on Twitter or wherever. The reason why Richard Bartle didn't discover this type of player simply is because economies didn't exist back then. Is this noise normal?
It's the carbon dioxide.
It's a carbon dioxide. Am I talking too much? Okay. So how you monetize him is very easy. You monetize him by limits. For example, inventory, right? If my inventory carries 100 items, but the trader wants to really have 200 items, the inventory expansion is the number one thing he buys. The currency, you buy stuff in the auction house. He would buy something if he basically wants more money. Auction house, for example. Usually, when you sell something in the auction house in such a game, you have like 3 slots. You can sell 3 items at once. If you want to sell more items at once, you have to pay for each single slot on top. We do that because traders have like 100 items at once in the market because they can play the market. Buy cheap, sell expensive. This is their day-to-day job. So they're really easy to monetize, specifically because they also know how money works. But this is like Richard Bartle per se. I just explained the player roles, but he's often misunderstood. People think that someone enters a game and has a specific role, and this is what he does all the time in the game. This is wrong. If you read the book carefully, Designing Virtual Worlds by Richard Bartle, he says that players switch roles all the time. There's just favorite roles they have. So someone who wants to be a killer, PvP, is 80% of the time a killer, but he might switch to be a socializer or an achiever. You know, an achiever might actually switch between stuff. Let's say you have an explorer who just, explores new adventures and new areas and just found a new monster or new treasure. He just gets a chat from his colleague, hey, raid is starting in 5 minutes, you want to come? Oh, of course. So he just goes back into the city, wears another armor for the raid and joins the raid to slay the mighty dragon. And suddenly he becomes an achiever. So this is possible. It's just that they have a favorite role. And this is important because here is the trick. If your game does not have enough content for any of these roles, you will make more than 20% less revenue. Because these roles support each other. There's one game type out there who by nature supports all 5 roles by default. And this is the MMORPG, the multiplayer massive online role-playing games, like World of Warcraft and all the other free-to-play versions of that. These by nature offer ideal stuff for all 5. That's the reason why free-to-play was invented for this. Free-to-play, the first free-to-play games we had were basically MMORPGs. That's the reason why all other game genres who try to be free-to-play adapt most of their mechanics from MMORPGs. In other words, if you want to know how well these online games work for free-to-play, you should play MMORPGs. If you're looking for designers who want to do free-to-play really easily and know how online games work, you should hire designers from MMORPGs. This is my tip in terms of this. For example, you remember level, right? You remember I told you my mom knows what a level is and what a level up is. The concept of level is coming from RPGs, right? D&D invented this like 30 years ago. And it was a niche concept. It was a hardcore concept. No other game supported leveling but RPGs. You remember that? I repeat myself from Tuesday. Now you can even level up in Battlefield or in a farm simulation. What? Yeah, they just copy the concept of RPGs and put RPG in all of the games. All the games now are a bit role-playing game. The more role-playing game RPG mechanics you have, the more you support that, the better you can monetize everything. Okay. Now, the most criticized part of my talk, specifically from religious people. This is a concept. This is not really serious, okay? This is just a guideline. So basically, how do you monetize the human being in front of the computer? And what we do is that we use the 7 sins. And I told you it's the oldest concept in the world. It's 2,000 years old. And it's a complete picture. There are no 8 sins. It's just 7. And how well it works, there are many examples like, do you know this series? Of course. Did you know that each of the characters is modeled after one of the sins? Did you know that? It's very simple. It is like this. So, you can basically just take a look. There's a sloth guy, he's just lying around, want to have everything for free. He doesn't want to work for stuff. The pride guy, envy, everything is there. So it's not even in the theory what I try to teach you. It's also working in totally different genres, that this is actually kind of a picture which works together if you have all 7. So here they are. Vanity, envy, gluttony, lust, anger, greed, and sloth. 7 sins, in case you didn't read the Bible. I didn't. I had to Google this. No, just kidding. So what we're trying to do is that when someone in front of the computer game, he gets motivated somehow to spend money in your game and buy items. Why does he do that? There's a motivation to actually click this and buy this item. And this motivation, usually you can connect to one of these 7 sins. So, vanity. Someone buying a shiny golden armor to pose in the city and see how beautiful he is committing vanity. Vanity players are really easy to monetize because this is all the decoration stuff, right? We also call them vanity items. Vanity items rarely work in most of the games you will ever do. The reason is that vanity items are coming from MMORPGs where players are seeing each other by accident. So you're just standing around in a city and there's another player walking around, you have never seen him before, and he's just walking beside and you just say, wow, he is looking cool. This is how vanity works. Vanity does not work that I have to add you to my friends list, I click you on my friends list, say visit, and then it loads, and when I'm in your zone or farm, then I see how cool that farm looks. This is when Vanity does not work. So Vanity never makes a lot of money unless you have an MMORPG or virtual world. That just, if you try to monetize just through this, like the first farm world does, you will fail. Next, envy. Envy is basically the desire on the friend's possession, right? You have something really cool, I want that. How do I get it? I should do what to get this? No way. I'd rather pay. This is basically what you monetize, I want whatever you have. This is what you monetize here. The Chinese games are much further ahead than we are. They're like 5 years ahead of us in terms of free-to-play. So what they allow is that when you have a really cool item, I can pay and hire a ninja to steal it from him. That's so cool. So I pay the ninja, the ninja goes to your zone, steals the item, and I have it, it's my treasure. And he lost it. And he has a message in his zone which says, Teut stole your ring. And he can call for vengeance. Guess what? The vengeance costs money. If you don't want something to be stolen, you can kind of, protect it. It costs money. They're just like that. They're agents, I tell you. So this is basically what envy is. Next, gluttony. Gluttony is someone who consumes a lot of stuff, right? And basically all consumables fall into this category. And Facebook games do that really, really well. So if you have Farmville, right? You plant a crop, you can click it, it's up, you can click it again, and then you can actually harvest it. If you want to make that faster, you can actually pay. In Heyday, which you should play, you have the same thing. You can basically instant grow this stuff. So this is like what this does, or the buffs and so on. These are items you can just spend like this. And this is gluttony. And they also give you a huge satisfaction because they cause something positive, and they communicate that with graphics, explosions, fireworks, whatever. So. Lust, very similar to this. These two are confused a lot. Lust basically is the motivation of your brain to feel happy when you click something and something good happens. This is like this, whatever hormone is being produced when you're happy and you click something and you just want click, 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 and you just make more. This is basically what happens here. This is basically what gamblers do in a casino, this kind of stuff, and then when they get the satisfaction, this is what happens here. So what I can give you as an example, a good example, is that there's a change in the history of games which happened in the last 5 years. Usually we had games which gives you positive and negative feedback. So, if you do something right, we give you positive feedback. If you do something wrong, we give you negative feedback. Bam, you're dead. Since Facebook, this has changed, that we no longer give you negative feedback. We just give you positive feedback. And we just give you a little bit positive feedback or a lot of positive feedback. This is basically the variation. So there's no negative feedback anymore. And this is all due to this, due to lust. There's, of course, an anti-trend to this, right? Because we are so fed up with all this positive, everybody wins thing, like in the kindergarten. There's actually now the coming back wave of hardcore. And that means games which we call now survival games, which has permadeath. So if you die, you lose everything. Goodbye. If you haven't played these, they're awesome. Daisy, Rust, how they're called. This is like the new wave, the anti-wave to this one. But lust basically means that every click wins. This is how Facebook games work. Every click is like, wow, great, this look cool. Oh, more. This is basically what happens here. Anger. Anger is basically, I'm so angry on this guy, I want to kill him. Not in real life, in the game, okay? Or I want to steal something from him. It's anger. He did something to me, he called me slut, whatever, And this is basically the guy from PvP. And you can monetize him really easily by just giving him the channel to actually retaliate. And there are games to actually do that pretty well, PvP games. The greed guy. Greed guy basically means that he never gives something to other players, who just collects from himself. And this is basically the trader we just talked about before, right? He just collects all the stuff, he wants to become filthy rich, and he never shares. And he's easy to monetize through all sorts of stuff we already talked about. Sloth, that's a new one. Sloth is basically the lazy player, the player who does not have as much time as you guys do, like 5 hours every evening you play a game, right? He just has like half an hour, but he wants to reach the same goal you do in the same time, but just with less. He's lazy. You want to reach certain things. So when you like work for a new tank in World of Tanks and you just have 500 matches more and I just got that tank, he just want to pay for it and have the default tank now. This is basically what this guy is. There are also automations happening, right? Many free-to-play games are grinders. Grinders mean that you have to repeat certain actions to gain something, and you just stack that up, and what you get as a reward, and then you buy something for it. This is what we call grinders. If you don't have time for grinding, you might have the idea to let someone else do the grinding for you. And in China, again, they actually sell bots. So you can pay for like 2 days that the game grinds for you. Bots are usually illegal in most games, right? Because they're coming from an external company. You have to buy the bot and then the bot plays for you. If they catch you using a bot, they ban you, so your account is gone. So they basically legalize bots by selling them. That's really cool. So now we have walked through 3 pillars of the monetization. Why the heck did I tell you all this? There's one single reason. Your game, when a player enters the shop, right? You don't know the player's motivation. You don't know the favorite role of that player. You might know his level. That's all you have. So this model basically, if you apply that correctly, guarantees that someone who enters your shop, for whatever human motivation, 7 sins, whatever favorite in-game role he plays, battle types, at whatever level he is, in-game mechanics, he finds items which are cool to support that. You get this? Okay. How you guarantee this is that you make an Excel sheet with all the items you have, and then you have player progress, early, mid, end game. Then you have the 7 sins, from vanity all the way to sloth, and then you have the 5 battle types. You just make an X. If that item supports this player type, or it's an early game item or an end game item, whatever you have, you just make the X's. And when you have all the items there, you just count how many X's you have. And if you have roughly enough items for all of these, you're fine. But you will find out, most games have that you have like a hole. Like you don't have enough items for the mid-game. So you better find some which players can buy, because otherwise your game doesn't monetize really well. So again, you want to guarantee that for whatever human motivation I enter your shop, at whatever level I am, at whatever in-game favorite role I have, I find items which are really cool to support me. And if possible, not only one item. I should find multiple items. Why is that? Because the pocket size is different for everyone. I want to have cheap items for the guy who doesn't have enough money, right? And I want to have expensive items for the guys who have really a lot of money. If you can guarantee that, your revenue will be much, much larger than if you limit all this. Most people don't do that check. This is basically the 3-pillar strategy we apply to all of our games now. And we are not the only ones who do that. If you go to your local market, they do the same. You don't believe me? The whole store is designed for you to spend money. They're professionals in this. I can give you an example. You know what MediaMarkt is? Does MediaMarkt exist here? What's your biggest electronic superstore where you can get computer games, computers, stereo, whatever? What's it called? You don't have this? I don't know. So again, we have these superstores, right? These stores where you, from a washing machine to a carbon monoxide trying thing to computers and games, you can just find everything. And I always give this store as an example, because if you enter the store and the door closes behind you, you're logged in. So you want to buy, let's say, the latest game for the PlayStation 4. So the games for the PlayStation 4 are in the far left corner. They're always in the far left corner. So there should be a principle behind it. So when you walk to that far left corner, you see on the shelves all these offers. Digital camera, €59. The whatever thing you can buy for 50 cents. They just give you like these offers once you walk into the corner where the PlayStations are and the game. So you finally have the game in your hand and you turn around because you have to go back to the cashier. Now something magic happens. You see the back of the shelf. The back of the shelf has everything you need to enhance the experience of your game. New controller, the camera, the next limited edition sticker you can put on your PlayStation. All the stuff you suddenly see because you simply turn around. So someone on purpose sorted his shop in a way to optimize the revenue. You know what this shop does? They measure the revenue by item type by square meter. Because they know when you buy something, what you bought, that means they can track where you walked, because they know where that stuff was, right? So they know the revenue per square meter and can optimize their store layout to actually monetize the best out of you. So if they do that, when you just shop for electronics or for food, you should do the same. Or you should learn from them. Go to a shopkeeper and ask him, listen, why are the carrots here? And he will tell you, well, first, all the carrots are here. You know, they're all in these plastic bins, and we put green stuff on top so that people think they're fresh. And all the lambs are actually slightly orange because then the colors are better. This is what they do. Have you ever bought eggs and there's a small little feather inside? Have you seen this? This feather, you know, someone put it there. Because then you think, oh, look at there, it's fresh. No, it's not. Yeah. So, pardon?
Could you still give one example of the reason that you need to have two pillars for the roles and the sins?
Yes. Okay, the question was, why do we have two pillars, one for the roles and one for the sins? The thing is that the player himself might have a different motivation than the role he actually prefers. So let's say I'm an explorer, and I'm currently really angry at someone. I won't buy necessarily the best sword, but I might buy the faster horse to actually catch you. Why a killer, in his in-game motivation, who's also angry, which is, you know, the human being might buy the biggest sword. That's the reason. Because we differ between the human being himself, his motivation, and his favorite role in the game. This is kind of difficult to explain, but basically, let's say you don't support explorers in your game. Let's say your game is not at all about exploration. So someone who enters your shop, who loves exploring, who can't play in your game, won't likely buy stuff anymore, because it doesn't support his favorite play style. This is basically what happens. It's a kind of matrix you put together. Yeah. So if you read the book from Richard Bartle, you know, some of that will be a little bit more clear. And you know, let's say, I don't know, a fireworker in real life would never kill someone, but if he loves to do that in his game, you know, there's a kind of certain conflict between him. So you have to separate his in-game behavior and his human being. And also there is, you know, to be honest, there are certain human psychological tricks you will use to actually optimize your sales. And these tricks are being used all over the world. So it's nothing I tell you now which is new, you know. Why do shops sell something for 99 cents and not for €1? Basically because your brain is left-sided, so whatever is on the left side you think is the price, which is 0.99, 1.99. Oh, it's just €1. No, it's not, it's 2. Right? Another trick, Pringles. You know Pringles, right? The chips. Okay, Pringles, master of manipulation. So Pringles sell the normal stock version for €1.99, right? So then they actually give you 20% more. You know, they put it's a red tube, and they put a yellow 20% banner on top for the same price. And you say, 20%, that's really good, right? 20% more. So what you did notice is that the whole thing is actually a little bit smaller. So it's 20% more from this tube. It's not 20% more from the first one you know. Huh? You get the trick? So the second thing is then, you know, they actually might adapt the price or lower the price, and then they basically go back to the normal tube. So they do this all the time. They play tricks with your mind. And these tricks are all known by economists and by basically how shops work. And you have to learn these tricks because these are wonderful to actually optimize your revenue. That sounds evil, but it's not. Everybody does it. You know, if you don't do it, basically you're losing competitional advantage. So this is basically what we do, right? In Excel, we make that sheet, we just count it, we fill the holes, we come up with items, so we have everything for everyone, for every pocket size, for every role, for every motivation, etc., so that he always has something to buy. What we also do is that we do a so-called basket test. Basket test is something all shops do. Basket test is something your government does. A basket test is that we take users in our closed beta and give them various amounts of in-game currency, like this, you know, basically €10, €50, or endless. We give them 10, €50, and, you know, endless money to test several behaviors. A guy who has €10 usually just buys the best stuff he can get at his current level. This is his behavior. So you know the top items for every level range you have in the game when you measure what the 10 euro guy buys. No, of course we track everything. The 50 euro guy is a little bit more loose. He buys usually the top 3 items what the 10 euro guy does, but he also buys something else. It's important for you to know what this something else is. Also, you can measure if the pricing is okay or not. So if the number 1 item everybody buys is 80% of your revenue, it's too cheap. Simple as that. You know, it's pricing stuff. Ask an economist, he can actually balance your prices. Now, why we are giving some people endless in-game currency? Simply because we want to measure how much can someone spend in this game per day on meaningful items. And this should not be capped. So if someone wants to spend 1,000 euro in your game on the first day, you better let him do that. Why is that? Simply because everybody has a different amount of money available, right? There are fucking rich people out there, and they don't care about the 1,000 euro. So let them spend it if they want to. It's your revenue. So this is what we basically call money sinks. So we allow that. And yes, we have users who do that. Yes, we do. Every game who has money sinks. Most users, of course, spend far less than that. On average, they're spending less than 50 euro. Most games are somewhere between 30 and 45 euro a month. Average spending from the paying users. Most games. So, some examples what we do in my game, Socializers Online, where I was creative director and did the monetization strategy. Just some examples. Okay, Settlers Online is an economy-based game. So you have woods. There's a woodcutter who cut woods and trees and makes wood, not beams, how do you call them? Wood trunks. Logs, thank you. So he's producing logs. The logs you can put in a sawmill, and the sawmill produces planks. And with the planks, you can build buildings. Now, because the woods are actually deteriorating, you know, kind of less and less trees there, you have a forester who plants new trees. So this is the cycle we have. Now, the problem with this, it's a key mechanic of Settlers. If we implement that in our online game, everybody would produce endless trees because it's a cycle. You know, the forester guarantees the supply in trees, you know, and basically it's all automated, so everything goes on. On Facebook, usually, they produce like 10 logs, and then you have to log in and click it to actually get it. This is how they do this, you know, they solve that problem. We couldn't do that simply because it's not Settlers-like. The endless production cycles, if you balance it perfectly, is part of the brand pillar. So what we actually did is that we limit the warehouse size. So you can only have 100 planks. So you produce planks, and you know, you fill up your warehouse, and if it's full, it stops. So you have to log in and spend it in order to do that. How can we monetize that? Well, you can pay to increase your warehouse. This is as easy as it is. This is basically the monetization strategy we then put there. And of course, if you're missing a certain resource, like planks, you can buy more in the shop. All the resources you produce in the game, you can actually buy. So we had another problem, another example. There is marble. It's a deposit. You know, you have a geologist. You know, you send him off, and after 2 hours he comes back and says, "Marble. Here, I found marble. 600 of it." So you put a mason in front of it, and you know, they basically chop marble. And after like 3-4 days, the 600 marble is depleted and empty, and then the whole thing collapses. So you have to find a marble deposit again, and build it, and then you can mine it again. So this is a kind of retention cycle which works really nicely. But as everything is automatic, and this is a kind of negative feedback when you log in and this thing is gone, we basically sell refills. So if you don't want to have the search for the deposit, build a mine or mason on top cycle to do, you can refill the deposit so it never collapses. And these refills are available for money, and they are one of our best sellers. So we limit the deposit size, the deposit depletes and destroys the mine or the building on top, and we monetize actually the refills, the faster geologist, you know, again, it's a specialist, and you can click to make him faster. Of course, the resource things to that the player over time needs more and more marble. So in the beginning, you need like 10 marble for a building. You level up, and suddenly buildings unlock which need like 100 marble to build. And then you level another 10 levels, and suddenly you have a building which needs like 5,000 marble. You see? So we scale exponentially with the use of marble. And players like that because their economy, you know, they optimize the economy to hell until they produce like 10,000 marble a day. So, they don't have a problem, but it's 2 buildings per day, and because you're building 1,000 buildings, it takes like a year to actually optimize everything. We have instant build buttons, right? So remember, you have to invest time, skill, or money in everything. So whenever you build something in Settlers, it takes time to build. And we're talking about seconds, right? 10 seconds to 4 minutes maybe. And there's an instant build button. The instant build button would not work because you could like build 10 buildings at once. So we limit the number of buildings you can build at once to 3. So you build 3 and you have to wait until they are finished and then you can build more. We monetize the 3 you can expand, so you can have 2 more or 3 or 4 more, so you can build like 7 buildings at once, and we monetize the instant build on top. And all are actually selling equally, which is nice, right? So you see that we're actually limiting certain things because we never give anything out for free, and these limits, to extend it for paying users, we basically monetize that. We have another thing which sells really well, which is what we call buffs. Because production is timed, right? Once every minute, it produces a plank. You can apply a buff, which for the next 4 hours, it doubles production, which is nice. Of course, they cost money. And it's 4 hours. So after 4 hours, you return back and buff it again, so it actually runs. There are some people who actually wake up in the night every 4 hours to actually buff their buildings. They do that. There are buff communities where you can basically register and you get a buff partner. It's nothing sexual, it just has to do with the game. So you get a buff partner and you buff yourself against each other. So I buff mine, you buff mine, so we can actually sleep 8 hours. That's nice. We also sell 8-hour buffs or 24-hour buffs. So if you're lazy, sloth, you just buy a 24-hour buff, yee, there you go. During Christmas, you can buy a 48-hour buff. These are best sellers, of course, and they just stock up. Because they're limited availability, just for 2 weeks, we have people who just buy 1,000 of it. Very cool. And it's all the same item, by the way. It's just the parameters changed. This is secret sauce of free-to-play. So more buildings, more resource, less revenue. So what we did is that we actually limited the number of buildings you can totally build. So in the beginning, you can just build like 25. And then we just, every level up, you get more and more buildings to build unless we cap you at 150. And then you can go into the shop and buy a building license, and actually you can build more until you hit the maximum of 650. This basically limits the progress of the player. This was our emergency button so that players don't play through the whole game in a very short time. The specialist, the geologist and the explorer and the general and the guy, you can basically buy better versions of that guy in the shop. Everybody can get one for free. In-game you produce gold. With the gold you buy one, but you can have one which is twice as fast if you buy it in the shop. And they're not limited, so you can buy like 50 of them if you want to. Explorers are our best-selling specialist. Pay item buildings. There are variants of buildings you can build in the game. So you build something in the game, and the same building is available in the shop, but it has pimped attributes. So let's say you build a house, and 10 people can live in this house. The same house is available in the pay shop, but there are actually 20 people who fit in the house. Because you have to save space, number of buildings, this building is actually preferred. This is our best-selling building, is the villa on the right side. It's just stuff, you just take the same item, you just tweak it and put it into the shop, and people buy it because it's slightly better. Now you will ask, of course, yes, but this is pay to win. If I don't spend money, I can never afford it. Wrong. Because you can earn the currency, the diamonds, the gems in the game, and over time, if you spend time, remember, I invest time, I get gems, and then I can, from time to time, buy me this stuff. Or a pay user, and he actually gifts that to you. Gifting is cool. So you can gift pay items in our game, something not many games do. So I can actually buy something for someone else. We also currently allow trading of all pay items. So everybody can trade everything if he wants to. And this is huge. We have like 500,000 pay items in the trade at all times. Basically, this evens out the pay to win factor. It's gone. Because if you can buy pay items in the normal trade, that's okay. Now you might think, if I can buy pay items in trade, why should I pay for that? Well, the first thing is that not all pay items are always available. They're actually expensive in the trade. You might buy them in the shop. And the other thing, each item in the trade, someone actually paid for. So we're making money anyway. And we can also see which pay items are the most popular. And we can kind of balance things. And remember that trade is monetized as well. So if you want to sell 10 pay items at once, you have to pay. because you're only allowed to trade 2 or 3. So there's one thing which happened. When I introduced that, I wanted to sell pay items to other players. I got criticized a lot by other, free-to-play specialists. What happened, what basically convinced them is the following. Usually, when you have a game where you have non-paying and paying users, usually non-paying users behave all the same. You pay, you suck. You can see this in every game. You have to pay for this game to win. Ha ha ha, you loser. It's a kind of bad relationship between those two, right? Because actually they might be jealous, or on the other hand, it's a free-to-play game, so they enjoy being free. Why do I have to handle people who actually pay for this? With this system that you can trade and gift items suddenly, every player embraces that he knows a payer. Let's say you're a paying user, I'm a non-paying user, I have you on my friends list, I know that you pay, and I ask you, listen, I want this one building, can you sell it to me? I give you 10,000 gold, which is the in-game currency I can earn for free. You need gold anyway, right? So you can actually trade. So you actually get gold cheaper than in the shop. So it's a win-win situation. Since we introduced that, we no longer have any criticization about paying users. Actually, everybody wants to know paying users. Paying user lists are secretly traded between players. Right? I know someone who spends like 500 euro a month. Look here. You can have everything from him if you give him the right price. He needs granite. This is the stuff which happens. So cool. So we increased revenue actually by doing this, and it wasn't much work. So, retention, the most misunderstood word. You will be sick of retention. Your managers say you have to fix retention. And then you can ask the manager, what is retention? Retention basically means, incentivized things in the game which lets player to come back. So, for example, a login bonus, right? If you log in every day in the game, you actually get a bonus. So most people log in every day to get the bonus. They might not necessarily play, but at least they get that. That's a very easy to do retention mechanic. But the most important retention mechanic you can have is make a fucking awesome game. Players come back to a fucking awesome game. You don't need retention stuff. Basically, retention mechanics optimize your retention. They don't cause retention. Your game quality is the first thing which actually causes retention. So, what worked really well in our game, though, is something what I call negative retention. Negative is something where it's actually making good retention, because if you don't do that, negative things are going to happen. Remember the deposit, which actually deteriorate. If they reach 0, they fall down. And they actually look ugly, as you can see. It's basically the mine collapses after a time. And to prevent that, you have to log in and maintain them. Then they don't collapse. That means that if you don't log in for a week in our game, your whole island looks like abandoned, ruins, because you didn't maintain it. So players are really keen to prevent that state from happening, and they're logging in like 3 times a day on average. Just for that reason. I don't recommend that system to everyone. It just works for specific games. So, remember, like positive retention, all that. Everything must be shiny and happy. But it actually works really well. So, this is like the end of part 2, and part 3 is happening in a second. I want to explain you why we require economies to be in all our games, because they are so simple to monetize. So I made this talk actually for GDC Online in the US, but I modified it for here. And I think it should be really interesting to you, because most of you will have games which at least are part of the economy. I know the company Grand Crew, I just visited them this morning, who do Supernauts. In their game, they have a sort of economy. You're building blocks, you're producing blocks you can build, and then you can actually do whatever with them. You can even sell them, which is basically what an economy is all about. So, just a few requirements. Some of that stuff you already know, because we have been here now two days nearly. What requirements do we have in order to have a free-to-play game based on economy? The first thing, of course, is dual currency. We have talked about that on Tuesday evening, right? Dual currency is a must. If you ever have someone who tells you, no, we don't do dual currency, fight it. You have to have dual currency. Just simply don't ask. It's like, you must have that. You have to have an item shop. Now this is like, some games are just monetizing through indirect buttons. Heyday, for example, does not have really an item shop. If they would have an item shop, they would do more money. Someone from Supercell here? Hands up? Yes. Do an item shop where I can buy stuff, please. Thank you very much. I would spend more money. So basically, you have to have a place where people know where to buy stuff. If they don't know, how can they buy it? It's so simple. Now, how do you do an item shop? There are standards out there. Go into any game you find and make screenshots of their shop. You will see that most of the shops all look alike. There's a reason they look alike, because they measured the hell out of them, A/B testing, God knows what, copy-paste that stuff. Don't reinvent the wheel, okay? So, some secrets. This is an early prototype of one of our shops. There's one big mistake they did. No Darth Vader. Does anyone has a pointer?
Is it on?
Is it on? No, the laser should work without any. Whatever. Okay. You see what this is here? This? What is that? It's a scroll bar. You know that scroll bars are really evil things because many people actually don't see a scroll bar. So this window shows you 7 items and a scroll bar, and 10% of everyone looking at the screenshot won't even notice the scroll bar, meaning they don't know that there are additional items down there. So what you do, and you can look at Supercell's Clash of Clans, perfect example, if you have something down there, you basically show half of the icon, so people see something is down there. Very easy thing, you must do that, Supernauts does that, very, very nice. Just small things, right? When you notice, when you look at successful games. An item shop must be integrated into your game in a natural way. That means that standard stuff for non-paying users must be available in the item shop. So you play the game normally, you're not a spending user. From time to time, you have to go into the item shop to buy something for in-game currency, not for the premium one. Why? Because every time I go into the shop, I see the cool pay items. And if there are new pay items, at some point there's an item which just say, oh, this is cool, and he spends. This is the reason why the item shop should be a natural part of your gameplay. If you look at Farmville 2, Farmville 2, awesome Facebook game from Zynga. Their shop is perfect. That's really, really nice because they have everything in the shop, even the buildings you have to build. They no longer distinguish between pay items and in-game items. Greatly done. Next thing, player progress. You remember, we want to have leveling, player progress, etc. in early, mid, end game. You remember that as well. Very important distinction because in the early game, players behave differently than in the mid game, and in the mid game, they behave differently than in the end game. So you have to serve your items, your service differently to these 3 player categories. So, and leveling is basically the major progression thing. You will get the problem of the end game. We talked about that Tuesday evening already, because when players play through all your content, they at the end of the game, and they're like bored, and bored players are dangerous. So we have to offer them something to keep them busy until you're shipping the expansion. Next requirement for our game is an economy. We're talking about economy-based games, how you monetize them. This is it. The definition comes from a book called Game Mechanics, Advanced Game Design from Ernest Adams. It's a pretty good book if you want to have a kind of theoretical programming language for game design. They define an economy that there are sources where item gets produced or created. There are drains where items are actually consumed. There are converters which convert items, and there are traders where where items can actually be traded, change owner. This is all an economy is. StarCraft, you should know that game, right? StarCraft, biggest RTS of all time, basically is an economy-based game. You have crystals, you have someone who goes there, mines the crystals and puts them back. You produce something, you convert them, you put them in. You convert the crystals into buildings, and the buildings convert something, energy or whatever, into units. The only thing StarCraft doesn't have is a trader. All the other 3 are in the game. This is basically what it is. The trade is important for us because it auto-balances the economy. When 1 million players produce something in your game and they trade it, at some point there's an inflation because there's too many of this thing in the economy. Too much wood. If there's too much wood in the economy, the prices go down. No one buys it anymore. At some point, it's so cheap that some people buy it and prices go up again. So the prices make this motion. Natural stuff, you can study economics to see how that works. And here's the magic, right? If there's an overproduction and you can no longer make money with it, less and less people will actually produce it. okay, because it's not worth selling, it's not worth trading. You just produce it for your own usage. Less and less people produce it means that less and less is in the trade and prices go up. See what's happening? The whole trade auto-balances your whole economy. What it takes to do that is a really brave designer, because basically you're giving your control over your prices and items, you give to your audience. And this is a brave step. And good free-to-play designers do that. Very good free-to-play designers give everything to the audience. You want an example? EVE Online. EVE Online, when you go there, every item, what you can buy, every single item is player-made. There are few exceptions, like skill books. All the stuff you see there, hundreds of thousands of different items, huge Titan ships, 5 kilometers long, or small fighters, or whatever. Some players spend months to build that shit, and is selling that to you. They do that. EverQuest Next. EverQuest Next, if you follow that, how they do it, you should follow that as a kind of research object. What they do is that they announce their big next MMORPG, and what they're selling is early access, end of February, for $119, stuff like that, a totally crazy price, to the editor of the world. You cannot access the game, you have the tool to build a world. So everybody who has access is building worlds. And what they do is that they take the 10% best stuff players build and build a game out of it. So they go to the next step, and instead of making a huge fantasy world for the game, they let the players do the fantasy world. How cool is that? I mean, content creation is the key to success, right? Effective content creation. And they simply let the users do it. It's called Sandbox, and there are many Sandbox games coming. Archage, Bless, Black Ocean, Black Desert, how it's called? I forgot the name. All Korean-based games from Korea who are Sandbox-based. User-generated content will be big. You heard it here first. The second thing, you heard about that, right? Itemized. Itemization means that everything you can buy is an item and you own it. You put it into your inventory, and inventory has their own problems. But nevertheless, you see here 3 different games I was participating in. And on the left, you have a submarine simulation called Silent Hunter Online. They have an inventory. Diesel fuel, torpedoes, ammunition, right? In the middle is Settlers Online, specialist resources you see here. On the right is Anno Online, resources, ships, and so on in your inventory. Every of these games have an inventory. And inventories, how they look like, are standardized. Inventories all look identical. Who defined the standard how inventory should look like? There's one game which actually defined how inventories look. How does this look like? Come on. Yes, thank you. World of Warcraft. Don't do it differently. There's a reason this works, okay? Number one reason, there's no text. Localization, huge issue. There's no text. So there's an icon. We are an image human being, right? You hover with your mouse over the icon, a tooltip opens up with all the descriptions. The tooltip is really sexy because you can localize it, and it actually resizes depending on language length. If you have ever localized your game into Russian, you know what long text is. Okay, so this is a really cool system, and every icon you can sort it, you can move it, you can give it away, you can drag and drop it, it's cool, it's an item, it's yours. So itemization for us is very, very important. This is a concept which is a little bit more difficult to grasp, simply because it's a little bit hidden and it's so obvious that everybody actually overlooks it, which is called tiering. Tiering is basically a system where over level progress, you divide the whole game into slices, into tiers. And the tiers have a huge advantage. Wait a second, yes, here we go. So, in Settlers, you find normal wood in tier 1. And when you level up, after a certain while, you have to use the hardwood to actually build stuff. And then you have to actually use tropical wood in order to build the 3rd tier of buildings. So we have different kinds of wood. Again, this was invented by
World of Warcraft.
See how important it is to actually analyze World of Warcraft? It's a really cool game. So let's see what they did. So here you see the ore. The ore you can smelt in to make metal out of it, of World of Warcraft, until level 86. So level 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. You see something? They have a 10 level slice. Every 10 levels, you have to have a new ore to basically smelt in and to build the next better sword. So you found copper, right? And you have your copper sword, and you're just smashing the reds and stuff, right? And then you're level 21, and suddenly the copper sword doesn't really work anymore. So then you go, oh, I just have a little bit tin, and the tin sword. Now that's much better, that goes, right? And why they do that? They do it because they can control the supply of ore for every single level range independently of the neighboring tiers. Balancing will be a huge problem for your game over time because it will run for 10 years. So you see here in the curve, right? The red curve is the ideal progression curve, but the reality is actually the blue one. So it's actually a little bit fucked up. So you as a designer want to correct this. And you want to correct this by pushing it up. What happens is that the whole curve actually goes up because you have to, change that formula. A tiered-based system means that, 10 level tiers, you can take this dot and put it on the red line, and the neighboring tiers are not influenced. And my recommendation usually is you tier everything. Everything. Analyze World of Warcraft. You will see that every 10 levels, not only you go through new resources, you also go through new skill sets. They introduce new gaming systems. So with level 10, you suddenly get skill points. Until level 10, you didn't have them. With level 20, you get the new area of effect skills. With level 30, you get a ride, a mount. With level 40, you get something. With level 60, you can fly. All this stuff goes bit by bit. Yes?
Doesn't this overlapping of tiers actually cause frustration for players, especially achievers, because basically you cannot really manage to cover all the bases of all the tiering systems until you reach the next level progression?
No, achievers only care about the highest tier. The rest is just temporary for them. It's totally fine. You know what the tier-based system, the huge advantage is that you can actually expand it, right? So if you have tiers up to level 60, you can ship an expansion with basically tiers at level 70, and you basically just duplicate all the resources and give them new names, right? And make them more rare or more needed, whatever you can do. So you can actually stack them. Now, in World of Warcraft, the problem is that their content expansion cycle is so slow, like once every 1.5 or 2 years, that there's a huge inflation going on in the world. In the beginning, everything is rare, very expensive, and the prices go down, and after 1.5 years, everything is like dirt cheap. So what they do to counter that is that they reset the whole pricing. So whenever a new expansion ships, everything else is worth nothing anymore. Everybody who has experience in World of Warcraft is doing this. This is not really sexy. Usually you should make sure that the endgame system is keeping the value of the endgame tiers. And when you add something on top, you do that. But nevertheless, the key message here is that a tiered-based system has huge advantages for a lot of things. It also means that you see the value of it by the item itself. If you have rare items, you know that Adamite is rare, and you're just like, oh, I have 10 of these. Wow, this is so cool. Because it's rare. It's like level 70 and I already have it. I'm level 50. Right? This is the kind of stuff which suddenly is there. Plus, of course, the tiered items you find, like the ore, you had to go to a specific province and actually mine it, right? Some of this is only available in very dangerous zones. So a level 50 dies immediately if he just steps in, right? So you have to be level 70 to actually get it. So this is like a huge motivation. The whole landscape is tiered because, it helps the explorer. The explorer actually knows where to find most of that ore because he already knows where it is and how to circumvent the monsters and so on. Lots of advantages. So the method itself, you remember, right? The progress, player behavior, and economy. And we actually go into the economy now. So the first method, how we monetize it, is what we call unlocks. Here is the tier-based system of World of Warcraft for clothing. They put the same thing with cloths, mostly all 10 levels. The spider silk is the exception. The spider silk is the rare version of the cloth in the same tier. They always have one cloth which is for normal stuff, and with the spider cloth you can actually build the rare stuff. So this is the trick they did. You can monetize unlocks. For example, here, it's a little bit hard to read, you can build a weaponsmith and it says player level 41 required. And you need 4,000 of this wood, 4,000 granite, and 6,000 tools. So if I have to be level 1 to build it, right, and I'm level 39, why isn't there a button which says, fuck it, I want to build it now, which costs money? This is what you can monetize. Early unlocks it's called. So you can buy this building in the shop and simply build it, and the minimum level requirement of the building is lower than for normal players in the game. No one cares if you have the building 2 levels sooner. Only the player cares about it. So this is basically what you can do, early unlocks. You can monetize limits. Limits basically means that the mayor's house dictates how much room you have for each item. Remember, I talked about that before. And if you can store 500 items and you can upgrade that, it also increases storage. But the upgrade, of course, is very expensive. So before you spend hundreds of resources in the upgrade, there's another button with gems attached, which basically says, spend 1,226 gems and you can instant upgrade. You click that button, bam, next level. This is basically what it is. By the way, 1,226 is roughly €7. It's a €7 click. You think this is too much? It's not. Our most expensive item is €80. One item. It's the most sought item everybody wants to have. Everybody wants to have that item. And it's selling like crazy. Next thing, the 10 building licenses, right? To expand how many buildings you can build. You can buy up to 18. So we limited the availability of that thing in the shop. Most people said, are you crazy? If someone wants to buy 100 of these, let him do this. Well, we don't. First, because the more buildings you have, the more you produce, the more stuff you can actually trade off. So the less you might buy, so we just limited it. The second thing is that, you remember, we limited the amount of houses. You can expand it by buying this thing, and we limited the availability of the thing. You can only buy 18. Now, during certain events, you can buy an additional one. And people are spending an arm and a leg to get this one additional one. So this is basically the scarcity what we monetize here. We monetize by tier number. Now it becomes sexy. Why tiers is also important for free-to-play. Tier number means that, you see, this is the first wood and stone, then we have the hardwood and marble, and then we have the exotic wood and granite. 3 tiers of the same material. 3 tiers means that we simply put a price on the wood, 35, and the hardwood is more expensive, the exotic wood is 3 times as expensive. This is the pricing of the wood. The planks, which is the next step, right, you convert wood into planks, is more expensive. Stone cannot be converted, but stone is actually more expensive than wood. Now, the pricing is the number one problem you will have. This is the first thing. Like, if you put an item into the shop, someone will ask, how much does it cost? And you say, no idea. You're just guessing. With a tier-based system, you can calculate the price due to the power of the item. And this is basically the lesson we will go through here in a second. Next thing, we sell by power variance. So you remember the buff, right? The buff which doubles production. You're getting the slides, by the way, I think, So if you want to remember it, sure, you can do photographs, but basically you're getting the slides. So the in-game buff, which is freely available, doubles your production for 30 minutes. The next slice of it doubles production for 2 hours. These can be produced in the game. In the shop, we have a triple production for 12 hours and a triple production for 24 hours. They're much better, of course. As you see, they triple the production, and they last much longer. And on events, we have a 4 times production with 12-hour duration. So just by these 3 parameters, price, duration, and power, we can have like 100 different variations of the same item. And we do. The number one rule you have to apply here is that every item at least have to have 3 parameters to balance. And if possible, an uneven number of things to balance. This is like design 101. But nevertheless, this is basically what we sell. And buffs are high-selling items. Time. We can monetize time. Really easy, right? So you can instant stuff, The watermill, for example, produces water. So usually you buy a well. You drill a well, and the well produces water, and if the water is empty, it deteriorates. You have to build a new well. So some players have to rebuild 30 wells per day because their thing is really big, So with this watermill, it's automatic. So this is really awesome. So this is one of the variants we basically sell. You can instant complete stuff. The geologist is faster. Basically, if it's faster, you monetize time. And basically, if you are a resource production game, and it takes time to produce resources, you can save time by selling the resources directly. And they do sell, simply because if I have 900 planks and I need 1,000 to build that building, I have to wait 2 hours until they finish, but I am actually late for my dinner. So what do? You just buy the 100 and bam, the house is there. This is basically what you do. This is monetizing time. Monetizing trade. This is the auction house of one of the games. I think this is the advanced auction house of World of Warcraft. Here you have our trade. We monetize that because you have one free slot, as you can see here, and you can add more slots by monetizing it. So we monetize the number of trades you can have, plus we monetize the maximum amount of items you can sell per sale. So in the beginning, you can sell like 1,000 each, and if you want to sell 5,000 slots, you actually have to pay on top. To be fair, we actually add the first 2 slots for gold, which is the in-game currency, and after 3, we actually monetize via gems. So just, that people can actually have more than one trade, because we are a trading game. So now let's go to the pricing, which is like the key point of this presentation. The tier-based pricing, including basket tests, which we talked about already. So how many gems do I sell per dollar? So let's say you have gems or diamonds as your primary currency. Your boss will ask you, listen, 1,000 diamonds, how much does it cost? Usually most companies just guess or copy-paste prices, which is wrong. You can actually calculate how much that is. And this is basically what we're doing here. So first thing, in our game, we are selling 100 packages of 100 items, like 100 wood, 100 marble, 100 whatever, it's just 100, so that people always know what they're getting when they buy something. And we assign any price. We just said the lowest tier resource, like the cheapest one, should be 25. It's 35 for a reason, I'll explain that in a second. Why 25? Because if you say the cheapest is 2 diamonds, okay, you just could say, like the cheapest 100 wood costs 2 diamonds. You have a problem if you made a mistake. If later on you want to balance the price on it, and you want to lower the price, the only chance you have is 1 diamond. You just half the price. This is not enough adjustment power you have. As a designer, you want to have adjustment power of at least 10%. So the minimum price should be 10. So you can sell it for 9 or for 11. We use 20 simply because, we want to have even more leverage and room. Later on, we increase the price to 35. That's the reason why it's actually 35 there. The reason why 25 is also good is that it's enough distance to the physiological price levels, like 49. 49 is very important for your brain, because 50 is so much more than 49. Your brain works like that. And it's far away from 99. 99 is much cheaper than 100. 3 digits, oh my God. Okay, so this is basically the reason why 25 is very cool. And then we divide it by tier. So 35, 65, 95. We simply said each tier is worth 30. So that's the reason why the price is increased. Each production step is worth 30, right? So 35 plus 30 is 65. So it's a matrix, right? This is all we did. Very easy. When we have defined that, the cool thing is that imagine you have a building which costs 100 wood planks and 100 stones to build. How much would you sell this item for in the shop? You can now exactly calculate it. So stone, we did the same thing. With stone, that was kind of funny. Planks have a production cycle. You saw that, right? You have a woodcutter. The woodcutter gives it to your sawmill. The forester refills it. It's a 2-step process to build it. But it's an automatic process. While stone, you basically have to refill or rebuild the thing all the time. So for players, it was worth more in their minds than wood. Although wood is actually easier to produce. And when we realized that, it's a psychological price difference people have in their head, we basically raised the price of stone to be roughly equal to wood. This is what we did. Something we found out during beta. The price jump for granite is a little bit higher than normal because you cannot mine that, you have to find it. So that's the reason why it's more expensive. So basically every power an item has inherited raises the price. And even if it's just 5 or 10. So that results in a price matrix. So basically we have a tier by production cycle price matrix. So if someone is tier 1 and is directly produced, it costs 35 for 100. If something is tier 1 and needs 4 production steps, it's 125. It's a price matrix. Everything can be now watched and basically referenced to that price. Every item in the game can be calculated back to its original production values in these resources. So you know the price of every single item in the game. Suddenly, bam, you can answer the question, how much is this item in the game? You dissect it into its components, you reference the price and you say, 990. It's as easy as that. So the non-tiered items are a little bit more complicated. Non-tiered means that some items cannot be dissected into wood. Let's say an explorer. An explorer, you know, he might have wood in his head, but you cannot dissect a human explorer being into its resources. So what you basically do is that you measure the power, what he gains per day, per month, and you measure it on that. And then you have a kind of price level on it. You add power for, let's say, comfort. If it's less work to have the shop item than the real item, you basically add to the price. If it's a time saver, if it's like twice as fast, you add a little bit price. And if there's some sort of limit and it doesn't count against it, you add a price. I can give you one example where we actually made a pricing mistake. This is one of the #1 selling items we have. It's a noble residence. A noble residence you can build in the game, but this one actually allows much more population to live in it. So when you have 10 residences, you have 100 population. If you have 10 noble residences, you have much more population. So you save space. Okay? So this thing costs in-game 40 planks and 60 stones. If you calculate that with the diamonds I just showed you, it's 80. It doesn't use a building license. So these 10 residences, noble residences I build, don't count against my building limit. It's way cool. So I add 25, very powerful. I add 10 because it doesn't use the building queue. So when I build 10 of them, they all build themselves like that. They don't use my building limit. And they offer more inhabitants. So theoretically, I came to a price from 145. And the correct price would be, of course, 149. You don't sell something for 145. 145 and 149 in your mind is the same price. So you just add the 4 games, okay? You just do it. It's the Lidl and Aldi trick, the trick every store does. So 149 is actually the correct price. But we actually made a mistake, and we sold it for 95. That's one of the reasons why it's one of the best sellers, because it's actually too cheap. But it actually is the first item payers started to trade. And that's the reason why we actually let the price be. Because people love to trade it, and that's the reason why we didn't correct this price. But nevertheless, you see just on this calculation how you can calculate item prices by just the item power and the cost and resources. This is a cool thing by a tiered-based system. Okay, some pricing guidelines, okay? The first thing is here, 49, 99, 100, 1000. This is like barriers you have. So price something, don't sell something for 1000. I see that mistake in so many games. You don't sell something in 1000, you sell it for 999. And here's the other trick, right? 999 and 899 and 869 and 898 is all the same price in your mind. So instead of selling something for $8.99, you can sell it for $9.99 and you won't have any revenue loss. It's your human brain which is fucked up, which causes that. It's not my fault, I'm just teaching you how that works, right? So, and here's the other thing. If you have an item for 9 and you have an item for 19, it's like very much more expensive. 9, 19, oh my God. 99, 19, this gap is not as high as the gap 9 and 19 in your mind. There is another trick, is that if I have an item for 19 and I sell it suddenly for 49, everybody would complain in the community. You made this expensive. If I raise the price from 700 to 800, no one would complain. Although it's much, much more the price raise. Your human mind stops working when they see these big jumps in the same price ranges. Okay, and it's even worse once you go over 1,000. Over 1,000, it's like if I sell an item for 2,000 or 4,000, it doesn't matter. 2,500, 3,500. There's this 5,000 thing, right? But over 5,000, if I have an item for 6,500 or 7,500, you know, it doesn't matter. So sell it for 7,500. It's a 1,000 difference. It's a lot of money you put on the table if you sell stuff too cheap. Pricing, psychology is very important, and every game designer who basically puts prices have to learn this, how that works. And it's very easy, you know, you just go into your local store and look at their tricks. And if you calculate your prices and you're at a price of 105, it's a really bad price. 105 is like the worst price you can have. So you want to go to 99. Now you can't go to 99 because then the other item is too expensive compared. So what do? So you must go to 99, but it's like too cheap. So what you do is that you reduce the package price. The package size. So instead of giving him 100, you give him 92. He won't notice, but it's 99 the price. This is the stuff you do. It's normal pricing psychology guidelines, what you have. There's something you should not do because people are talking about it, is that you should not vary price by player type. Prices should be constant for every single player. You might be surprised that I say this, right? There are companies out there who don't do that, like Zynga. When you pay for a Zynga game, for any Zynga game, they raise the prices for all the games you play. Why? Why do they do that? Simply, they also do stuff like they lessen the goodies you receive. Like if you play a Zynga game, you get gems here and there, and you get stuff and free rare items and so on. Once you paid for any one of them, you no longer get it. Because you paid. And when you paid, your threshold is really low, so you pay again. That's the reason why they don't give you that for free. Theoretically, it's a good practice, but practically, it's very evil. And you should not do that because people talk about it. And if they talk about it, you know, they're starting to hate you. And this might be one of the reasons Zynga is going downhill. They also, you know, this is really sad stuff. So there's this offer popping up, right? You know, now 200 diamonds for just $9.99. 200 diamonds, $9.99. At the same time, my offer popped up, two computers beside each other, you know, 200 gems, $4.99. Wait a second, what? I pay half the price, my wife does? Two computers beside each other, we're playing the same game. Wait a second, what's wrong here? Here's the trick, you know. One of these paid, the other one not. Guess which of these two already paid? Of course, the $9.99. He already paid, meaning that, you know, let's get all his money out of his pocket. Don't do that. Very evil. So, the game package pricing. So we now have games. Yes?
Say that you've made the error of pricing something, say, $8.99, and you have your nice shop and everything there, and you have a bit like, you know, bad pricing there, not quite there. What's like the best way of then changing that?
Okay.
Obviously, if you change from
Yeah. Basically, the question was, how can you change prices in your shop in case you make a mistake? The big secret is you can always go down, you can never go up. So this is a big secret. So if you have an item for $9.99 in the shop and you made a mistake, you can sell it for $8.99 and everybody will be happy if you made that mistake. If you have an item for $9.99 and you suddenly sell it for $12.99, there will be people really angry at us, right? That's normal. So what do you do if you don't know if your prices is right? You go online more expensive than you think you would do. Because you can always go cheaper, you can never go more expensive. So this is what we do. Once we know how many diamonds we sell per dollar, and we know from a formula this is it, you know, we double the price and go online with that. And then we test it, and then we go cheaper over time. And basically approximate the ideal solution when the revenue basically has hit the sweet spot. This is what we do. Yeah. And this is part of this anyway here. So how much diamonds do you sell per dollar? This is the question, right? Your boss comes to you and said, here, 1,000 diamonds, how much do you charge? Yes, you know, theoretically you don't know. But if you did the tiered-based pricing, you have a bottom-up model now. No, you can go from the lower prices to the higher prices. You have priced everything independent how much dollars it is, you know. This is the first mistake many designers do, which I always tell don't do that, is that they have all the items, they calculate their powers, they have the formulas, and they have the diamond price beside it, and then they calculate that in how much dollars that would be. So they see, hey, here's an item which costs $2.50. This is too expensive, make it cheaper. This is wrong. Remove dollar prices from all the extra seats you have. Your responsibility is the in-game balance and pricing. Your responsibility is not the pricing of 1,000 diamonds. Because you will make wrong decisions if you see the real price of it. And I will show you why. So basically, what we do is this cycle. So we make a shopping basket test. Remember, low, medium, high spender. 10 euro, 50 euro, endless euro. Roughly, we think 10 euro is that. This is your assumption. So you give that to 1,000 players. You give 50 euro worth of diamonds to another 1,000 players. And you give 100 players like millions of diamonds to spend. So you can make all the tests. Then you let them play for a while, you get all the data, and you analyze what they bought, and then you define a lifetime value. So you say, okay, I want that someone who paid and leaves the game has paid us 150 euro. This is just your definition. And from that, you can reverse calculate the game costs. Because you know the player who got endless or whatever, what he spent during his lifetime, and can add that up and simply say, these games is worth 150 euro. This is as easy as it is. And then you can define the $10 package size, and this is all you need to know, because the other ones are actually giving you more diamonds per dollar. Why is that? So if I have a $10 package size, you know, iOS has different package sizes, I know, but I just have here an example. If I spend $10 and I get 1,000 diamonds, and if I spend $20, I should not get 2,000. I should actually get 2,500. The more money I spend, the more in return I get. It's an accelerated payout. So, example, for $10 I get 1,000. For $100 I should get 10,000, but I actually get 25,000. So you upsell users. So users see the ladder. They see like $5, $10, $15, whatever dollars, right? And the increasing payout, and they maximize their spending depending on their pocket size. Some people might not have enough money, so they just give you 10 euro, which is fine. Some players have a lot more money, and they just buy the $99 package, bam. Because it's the best value for money. This is what you do. You don't do a linear price increase. You don't do that. You make it exponential. If you don't do that, you will lose revenue a lot, because you don't upsell people. And in our game, the jump, 10, 25, 49, 99, it's on purpose that we don't have a $20 package. It's on purpose. The first thing is that because people cannot calculate times 2.5. Yes, I know, it's a sad statement. The other thing is that 25 is half of 49, and 50 is like the center. It's the anchor. Price anchoring is very important. We have 5 different price points, and the middle one is your anchor. People who don't know how much to spend for your game will go to the middle price. This is a fact. So if you have 4 price points, there's no middle. So they go for the lower of the 2. Have 5, they go for the middle. No, our middle, if you look at our prices, is a $25 price point, meaning that we have automatically a minimum RPPU of 25. This is how easy it is. If you want to know how that works, you should Google immediately Dan Ariely. If you don't know that guy, he basically is explaining price anchoring very, very nicely. Dan Ariely. Dan Ariely. A-R-I-E-L-Y. He's like a master. Don't be scared. He's like half burned in his face because he had an accident. But on the other hand, he's one of the geniuses who explain you price anchoring. Again, it's pricing, right? So this is basically what you do. So this is an example from early days, right? So we had different player types, a ratio. 60% were the 10 euro package, 30% had the 50 euro package, 10 had like endless. So the lifetime value we assigned to these users is there, 51, 50, and 500. And we could actually calculate the game price per player type by simply using this Excel chart. And then we defined the 10 euro package, 843 gems, with a small discount. And then we had the final ones. So I give you an example. 0.017 euro per diamond. This is the calculation we found out by the spending value of these players. The number of gems they spend during the whole lifetime, you know, basically is that value. And then we defined the 10 euro one, and then we accelerated the number of gems we had. And 843 gems is a really bad value, so we actually increased that. The final values we have today is 1,700, but we went online with 900. So 900, we went online, and we nearly doubled that because we found out we are too expensive. But it's better to go online expensive, because if, in case you make a mistake and you're too cheap, raising prices is really bad. So that's the reason. So these are the final prices, and they're valid till today. We never had to change that. And you see the acceleration. There are some mistakes in this thing. We are still learning, but we haven't changed the price. For example, 4,800 payout for 25 euro is a really bad thing. Why is that? If we would write in 5,000, just 200 more, we would sell more, because 5,000 sounds so much more than 4,800. So this is all the stuff you learn when you do these games. Why didn't we change that yet? No idea. Because it's Ubisoft, or because it's just we're just too slow, or someone doesn't care. Maybe it's not important. I don't know. We just didn't change it yet. Yes.
Do you think it's still better to have 10 euros price than 9.99?
We have 9.99 in the shop. Okay, this is, I just rounded up. We have 9.99, 24.99, and all that crap. We have that. I'm not a big fan of that, specifically in this area, because I think, I don't know. You can experiment. Maybe we can do a B test or something. Now, the one thing we do though is that we vary the payout depending by country. So in Poland, when you spend 10 euro, you nearly get 60% more payout than in Germany, because these people have less spendable income. So basically, when we spend 10 euro, an average Polish player will spend just 5. So that he has the same fun for his spendable income, we basically nearly double the payout. And that works beautifully. Not many games can do that. You can do that in the App Store. You can do that. You can give Polish players a different price than other players. But you know, this is something we do. And country optimization is very important. But this is theoretically not your job unless you're a business manager. Okay. So recap, right? We price by tier. We increase the price of the item by additional powers it have. Then we make the spending test, low, medium, high spending test. And again, the guys we give like millions of diamonds are there to test the money sink, so that someone who wants to spend a lot of money in a game actually can do so in a meaningful way. If I can only spend 10 euro in the first week of your game, guess what happens? You know, you will only make 10 euro for paying users in the first week. If your game can cope with 10, 50, or 1,000 euro during the first week, you know, you will have a nice little spending curve. Then we define the lifetime value. You know, you can basically just say that, and that's basically something which is like a business calculation. You price one package, you accelerate the rest, and then you can go online. And here's the trick, the kind of secret why this is so cool. The item prices are stable. You don't change in-game prices for diamonds. You don't do that. Maybe if you made a mistake, you make adjustments. But you never go in there and say, okay, everything is half off. What you do is that you go with dynamic prices. You double the payout for 10 euro when you do a sale. We call them happy hours. So from time to time, you know, in the beginning of the month or someone, you know, there for one day we double the payout of our packages and we sell like crazy. We do that. We never ever reduce the price of an item for a sale. This is something many iOS games do, right? 20% off today. This is really bad. And you can ask economists about this, why this is bad. It destroys the perceived value of items if you sell it cheaper. Okay, there's an economic dissertation about a specific test they did with pizzerias. Okay, this is like an example everybody understands. You know, a place selling pizza. So there was one place selling pizza and identical another place selling pizza. They had roughly the same customer base and the same revenue. So in one of the pizzas, 2 days a week, they sold the pizza for half the price. Tuesday and Thursdays, pizza half price. Okay. The other place on Tuesday and Thursday didn't half the price, but they gave you a soft drink for free. 2 different methods. Both of them made the same revenue increase, right? But when they actually didn't sell, this one lost revenue. Because people coming to the place suddenly saw, why should I pay €5 for the pizza when I paid €2.50 yesterday? So they lost sales. The other place, you got something free on top. And you will see that on any restaurant you go. You go to an Italian restaurant, you know, they give you bread for free. This is the trick. You give someone for free on top when you do a sale. You don't lower the price of items. Economy, 1, 2, 3. So usually inexperienced companies tell you, yeah, but when we do a sale, we sell millions. Of course they do sell millions, but they also lose revenue because the perceived value gets destroyed of all these items. Just a warning. Okay, I'm done. Yes, please.
I have a question. The reduced price, doesn't it bring those players paying for the game that haven't paid before? You know?
Okay, the question was, if I reduce the price of an item, isn't that more attractive suddenly for users to actually pay? The same argument cost is the other way around. If I have a €10 package and I get 1,000 diamonds, right? €10, 1,000 diamonds. And for me it's too expensive because the item I want is 1,000 and I say it's €10. If I give you double the diamonds, suddenly the item is half price. But I don't stick the half price on the item. The trick here is that I buy diamonds, well, like 2,000 is happy hour, right? €10, I get double the payout. So 2,000 diamonds, I go into the game and I totally forgot about the price per diamond ratio. But I have 2,000 and then I spend it. This is an important step of dual currency, that you sell your currency outside of the game or in the store, and once you have the dual currency available, you basically turn off the euro to diamond value and you spend it by power of the item in the game and not how much euro you spend on this item. This is the trick which works. If you reduce the price, you permanently destroy the value of the item in the mind of the player. This is basically the problem. Yes?
Do you have any good mechanics and designs for the conversion, getting the players in the first time buying the diamonds and starting launching the money?
Okay, the question was, do I have good mechanics to actually make players pay easier to raise conversion? Number 1, happy hours. Happy hours is wonderful. Basically, what if you have a price package like, you know, like this on the right side, you assume that everybody gets the value of the €10 package. So you assume the 1,700 diamonds I get for €10 is in everybody's mind the same value. But we agree that everybody has a different pocket size. So for some of you, €10 is a lot of money, and you say, nah, it's too expensive. So the trick with the happy hour that you suddenly get double the amount of diamonds is that suddenly you might hit the sweet spot of the other guy who does not have that much money. This is basically what raises conversion. The other thing is that we have introduced a starter package. So non-paying users see a package which is rebated, like one of these. Paying users no longer see that. You can buy that once. Simply because we know when someone pays once for a game, he will pay multiple times. Threshold is gone. There are many users out there who like to pay for free-to-play games. You know, there are many users out there who really like to do that. So what they do when they like your game, they enter your game, they like what they're seeing, they immediately pay. Like, you know, €10. They give you €10 because they appreciate your work, they appreciate the game, and they want to experience the game as a paying user because this is how they play the game. So you better make sure that someone who pays the first time has the greatest experience in his life. This is another way to raise conversion because people are talking about it. Yeah. But basically, happy hours is one way, raise conversions, price adjustments, you know, and giving out freebies. So we give out pay items from time to time, Christmas, Easter, and so on. It's kind of a preview, right? You have an item which is more expensive than you never buy that, but you get 1 or 2 for free, so you see how cool that shit is, and then you buy it. It's another trick to raise conversion. Yeah.
How do you communicate price changes?
Price changes like permanent or happy hours?
If you do a happy hour or whatever salary changes you do, how do you communicate?
In our case, because we are a browser game, we communicate it on the login page, of course. You know, you log in on your web page, and this is like big happy hour, and there's a symbol on the page. You know, now you get double the payout. We communicated inside the game. Once you logged in, there's a pop-up telling you there's a happy hour. And if you are logged in already and the happy hour is on, we communicated inside the game through a pop-up. Additionally, on Facebook, Twitter, everywhere. So we just say sale until 11 o'clock. Actually, I will turn on a happy hour tonight for one of the games. So, and then I communicate this everywhere, so everybody actually knows it is. And the next day, I actually turn it off. Now, on iOS, it's a little bit more difficult. Right? So the game itself has to actually tell you this. You can have a push. When you start the game, it should tell you immediately, when you're like, if you log into Heyday, you will see that, On Heyday, you log in, suddenly there's this, bam, 30% off. And you have to click that away, and it doesn't vanish. What it does is that it minimizes in the top right corner. And it actually has a countdown on it. This is genius stuff, right? When you have the sales window minimized and there's a countdown, just the countdown raises your conversion of that sale by 10%, just the countdown. This is stuff how you do it. You can send in-game emails if you have in-game emails in your game. I recommend that, by the way. Any iOS game you do with this Persistent Online should have in-game email, because you can email all your players. You can attach items to the mail and just gift stuff out, You can tell everyone, happy hours on, lots of stuff. So this is how we communicate it.
Have you seen some games using the trick that if the player started to pay and then the game increase the difficulty level of that game?
See?
To this
I told you someone will do this. Zynga does that. Yes, I have seen games. So there are games that once you pay, they increase difficulty. Basically because it raises the grind factor, and then you're actually paying more to overcome the grind factor. I don't like that at all. Because for me, the game should be fair to everyone. And I bet it will backfire over time. It will make you short-term revenue, but over the long term, it will backfire. Because your player base isn't stupid. At some point, players will talk about it, and then will raise hell. Yeah. I don't like that at all. I know that Heyday does that to an extent. But it's very hard to notice. For example, I no longer have your advertising free games thing. Once a day you can look at an advertising, you get 1 free game per day on Heyday. I don't have that. No, I get sales for the 69 euro package, the really big one. I get, a sale. I never get a sale for a cheaper one. My wife does, because she never paid. You just have a sale in your trade where you can buy 20 access for 9 games, right? I never ever see that sale again. Because they know they can upsell me because I paid for the game. I don't like that system. I personally don't recommend it. Be fair. It's your players. It's not human beings you exploit. It's your player base. It's the guys who pay your salaries. So, be nice to them. You're a service. You're not an exploiting company. So this is my recommendation.
Are you still playing the game?
Pardon?
Are you still playing the game?
Again?
Are you still playing
Yes,
the game?
I'm still playing the game every day.
So that's not an impediment, right?
No, but I'm actually circumventing it because I actually cancel the offer all the time. I no longer pay. This is basically my feedback to them. And I emailed Ilka about that shit. Yes, I did. I know him, so I ranted. No, don't do that. Yeah.
Yeah, there's also a game like the DVD2 when they launched in China. They increase the whole game difficulty.
The Chinese do everything. The Chinese do incredible stuff to players. It's, but they also have some cool concept. There's a game, no joke, which for every hour you play the game, they pay you in diamonds. This is cool, right? So you can buy diamonds, or you can just play for a long time and you earn diamonds by playing. This is really cool. It will arrive here at some point, right? The Chinese are like 5 years ahead. But you can learn from them what's coming in the future, and you can predict the future. Yeah, well, you're cheating, but you can actually do that. If you know a little bit Chinese or know someone in some of the games you can actually play, you should try here and there. It's like advanced studies for free-to-play stuff. Yeah. There was another question here, there.
What I've understood, free-to-play games are becoming more popular, which is great because more and more people get to play the games.
Wait a second, you just said what?
That
Free-to-play games are becoming more popular? That's something you could have said 5 years ago.
all right, but are they still getting more and more?
Yes, yes,
Okay,
yes.
So, and I think that's great. But my question is that, do you think that there's going to be some sort of saturation point, or is there going to be some sort of a counter reaction that people get sick of the games because they realize that they are basically quite
No.
the same?
Because free simply wins every time. You can prove it pretty easily. Free-to-play was invented in China and Korea due to the saturation of the market. There were too many MMORPGs charging monthly subscription fees. So some of them started to give out the game for free. And all the payment subscription games all went down. They all went broke because free just wins everything. So, and that was 15 years ago, and they still play free-to-play games. 5 years later, the whole thing started in Europe. Free-to-play started 11 years ago in Europe. And it's still active today. Only because I just want to say fucking Americans, only because the Americans discovered free-to-play 5 years ago, everybody thinks it's brand new. It's not, it's really old, and it's still working. So no, it won't fail. There is also always an anti-trend. So because 95% of all apps are free-to-play in the App Store, there is like this anti-trend of paid apps coming, because they learn how to counter that. But for specific games, that works. But most of the time, if you're looking for long-term revenue, free-to-play just beats everything. Not every game is suitable for free-to-play. For example, single-player games, skill-based games, etc. You should not do them free-to-play, unless you convert them to a free-to-play game and basically submit your game design underneath the free-to-play rules.
Just going to actually mention that there has been at least a couple of interesting single-player experiments like that. I mean, Dead Space 3, for example, it tried to utilize a free-to-play resource mechanic for
there's a lot of mingling, right? If you closely look at console games, the latest releases, they sell you a $50 console game, right? So you play through the console game and you can buy add-ons. And then you actually go into PvP and it suddenly in PvP it's a free-to-play game. I know because I did the pricing for the Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag PvP game. It is a free-to-play mode inside a $60 game. So yes, there is a sort of mix-up here and there are experiments going on, there are mixture stuff, right? But if you plan, now we're doing a free-to-play game, you better dive all in and not just trying to make compromises. Single-player games are harder because simply you pay for something which might vanish. It's not like persistent. While when you're in a world with 1,000 players and you invest in it, if you pay for it, you're not going to leave that game. This is a big secret. That's the reason why World of Warcraft will never go away, because people spend years in it. They won't delete their account. No, they won't. I stopped playing World of Warcraft, but I still have my account. Now they actually said they will never delete accounts, which means that I actually stop paying. But I know if I start paying again, I actually have my stuff back. Yeah. And they still make $1 billion a year. Okay. And 228 million per year with free-to-play item sales. Yes, World of Warcraft does that. EVE Honor does the same thing. Any more questions?
Is there a danger with A/B testing that people see that there are different prices and other people are getting stuff for cheaper?
Yes, the A/B testing prices is very tough, unless you tell the community that you're doing so. If we do that, we don't do A/B testing. We don't. Because A/B testing for me is, okay, how should I tell this polite? If a designer doesn't make a good decision and says, let's A/B test that, it means that his skill level is actually not good enough to decide what is a good solution. I know it's cheap what I'm saying, but basically this is one. The second reason is that A/B testing has to be done from the start and it's fucking hard to do. A/B testing is very difficult to do. A/B testing prices you can do when you have sharded servers. Let's say we have 14 Settlers servers in Germany, so we could have one server where we basically make a test for an item sale. If we lower or change the price, and then see and then put it on all. But what we're actually doing, which is not a clean A/B test, is that for 1 week for all servers we change the price. And then we convert it back. Because we have a weekly rhythm, we can compare the weeks to each other and see if the price works better or not. Which is not really an A/B test, but it's sort of. But I agree, it's not easy. We never ever got a complaint of a paying user that an item is too expensive or, not buyable. We never. But you know what we got? We got emails from paying users that items are too cheap. And if you play these games, you know why that happens. Expensive means it's a goal to achieve. Too cheap means, right, this is too cheap, why should he have that? You know, too cheap means it's destroying his value in the game. That's the reason why they complain about cheaper prices more than too expensive prices. It's very funny. You know. Okay. Yes?
Do you have any method to make up the mistake you made in pricing?
You have to speak up a little bit. My ears are really old and bad. So.
Do you have any method to make up the mistake you made in pricing?
Do we have any measurement to see if we did a mistake in pricing? Yes. What we do is we measure the amount of items we sell, and we measure the revenue we do per amount of these items we sell. And we have kind of pie charts of it, and we see if an item sells really a lot, but it's just a tiny amount of our revenue, then basically the pricing is wrong. The tier-based pricing prevents 90% of your mistakes you do. And the other mistakes you can find with that method. So, you know, if like 30% of all sales is one item, but less than 5% of your revenue, there is a mistake. So you have to increase the price, or at least the revenue is a little bit more, but you know, there's a kind of sweet spot. It's like a function you have, and you have to find this spot. Yeah. That's what we do. We do these, you know, like once a quarter, I get all item sales of the quarter, and I make these analyses and see if there's anything wrong. And also I measure if there's anything different from the previous quarter or the last year. So if there are shifts in item sales suddenly, in popularity of items, you know, I try to find out the reason. And sometimes it happens, you know, and you have to find out why, because, you know, it might be a bad thing or maybe even a good thing. Yeah. So I do that like 4 times a year. Yeah.
Have you noticed any interest when it comes to retention? Have you noticed any interesting patterns when it comes to player base and numbers? Because, for example, World of Warcraft has this cycle of ebb and flow, losing 1.5 million users before and after each expansion. And I was just curious, have you noticed how long basically a free-to-play MMO can sustain itself?
Okay, a good free-to-play MMO can sustain itself endlessly, unless it gets replaced in terms of technology. All good games still exist today. No exception. Ultima Online is still online. EverQuest still works. You know, everything is still online today. The same will happen if you have a really good game. You know, this is like the #1 thing I have to teach Ubisoft. You know, we started Settlers Online, and they basically ask, when is it finished? And I said, never. And they said, well, why? I need the team. I said, you will never get the team because we have to work on this for 10 years. And I had to prove them that. There's a game in Germany from a company called Zipsoft. It's a free-to-play game called Tibia. The whole company is 70 people, 70. This game basically feeds 70 people. And this game went online 2 weeks after Ultima Online. It's 17 years old, and they still have 70 people, and they're profitable. 17 years. This is how long a game can last. So if you have a really good game, you know, it will last forever. So Supercell's Clash of Clans, you know, in 10 years' time we can meet here and we can still talk about Clash of Clans. It won't go away. Because paying users don't leave a game.
That's exactly what I wanted to ask. So basically the number of paying outliers remains the same no matter what the player base.
Yes, yeah. You stack up payers. I mean, there are some payers who leave here and there, right? If there's saturation after 5 years' time is maybe enough, but you lose them far less than non-paying users. So over time, you basically stack up paying users all the time, and your free users might pump depending how good your marketing is, and you know how good your retention is, and so on. And there are certain cycles, yes, like the summer cycle, the Christmas cycle, and so on. You know, there's like over the last quarter and the first quarter, we have like this huge thing of user acquisition because winter everybody plays, and during summer it goes down because, you know, growth is so much more interesting than games. So you have this like sink during summer.
So you mentioned that the free-to-play model doesn't work well for single-user games, but if you think about mobile games, a lot of those are not very deep multiplayer games, at least, even if they're social.
Yeah, but it's enough. I mean, if you look at the charts, top grossing charts.
My question was, how much of a social or multiplayer feature?
Asynchronous game experience is enough, like Facebook did.
What about like a leaderboard?
Not enough.
Not enough.
No. You have to see other people. You have to engage with them, like we just did in Heyday. I just taught her how she can access top players in the leaderboards. This is one thing. You can visit them, you can trade with them, you can make them happy by giving them a smile. You can, the Heyday has no chat, which I find a huge mistake. Heyday has no chat. Okay? Yes, Heyday has no chat. Clash of Clans has a chat. So this is engagement, this is socialization. So basically, you can learn from Facebook, but you have to see that Facebook games have Facebook as a communication background. If you have a Facebook game on iOS, you have to basically put in Facebook communication stuff inside. Like, maybe I can poke you, I can chat you, I can send you email, I can send you items, whatever. This stuff is enough to make it a MMO. It's a communication layer, which is important, and the interaction layer. And it can be so asynchronous that you still have a single playerish game. Play Heyday. You should actually, if you're part of this course. Yes, you should. But it's pretty much a single player game with occasional interaction with other players. And that's fine. That's already enough. For now. It might change in the future. But it's still, asynchronous game design is like key to success anyway, due to the server costs and so on. And it's not as hard to actually pimp it. If you look at Settlers Online, if you play that, we have real-time chat. We have friends list, Whisper, mail, guilds, clans, whatever. We had tons of stuff in there. It's still totally asynchronous, the game. And still people think it's like persistent, because once you log in as a new player, you see hundreds of players chatting, and you suddenly feel, oh, I'm not alone here. Just this feeling is enough. Chat is hard on iOS, I know. But, there are ways around it. Yes?
Have you ever had problems with chat moderation?
Oh, should we really go into this?
You're targeting like from say 15 and up thing, but there is
We don't target 15 and up. Our average age is 35.
Sorry?
Our average age is 35.
35.
Yes, we don't target kids. Kids is not your audience.
Yeah, but majority of I don't know, but still
the majority
another 12 years old,
he can confirm it, right? Heyday, the average age of Heyday players is fucking old. Don't tell me teens play this game. They find it utterly boring. Okay? Clash of Clans is a younger audience simply because it is PvP. PvP means younger, right? But kids are really hard to monetize. Don't. If your company relies on targeting kids, I wouldn't do this. Very, very hard. They have to buy iTunes cards to pay or steal the credit card of their mom. Don't do that. Do games for adults. They have the money. This is my recommendation. If you have the key to success to monetize kids and to make kids happy, holy grail, like Club Penguin did and so on. But be careful. Chat moderation, on the other hand. First thing we do is that we save all chat. Okay, should I repeat this? Why do we do that? For legal reasons. Now, we have requests from police coming in. One of your players is actually suing another player for sexual harassment. We need the chat protocols. And we say, okay, here you have them. We save them for 3 to 6 months, and then we delete it. We save IPs, everything. Basically, we did what the NSA is doing now publicly. This is not an official quote, okay? We learned that from Blizzard. Blizzard, with their World of Warcraft, is saving everything you do. And you know how we find out? I was in this dungeon, and I got my new sword, right? And I walked out of the dungeon, and my sword was gone. I said, what the fuck? My sword, it's gone. So I entered a support ticket. It was 11 in the night, so I went to sleep. The next day, they didn't answer. The day after that, they answered and said, we need the rough time when you got your sword and who was with you. That's interesting. Interesting question. So I gave them, and the raid leader, right? So I gave them the name of the raid leader, the guys who were with me, and the rough time when they found the sword. That means they saved that information. They looked to the database and knew this guy, raid leader, with these people found that sword at that point. The database says, yes, he found it. And also, he knew the ID of the sword and gave it back to me. So they track the ID of any item. So if you have an item, a game master can tell when this item was found, who owned it, and who sold it to you. The whole chain of ownership is stored in this item. They're tracking everything. Whisper, chat, everything. And you have to do that if you want to have, if you're big, at the beginning you don't need to do that. If you're growing and you be Supercell, you have to save all that stuff. And there are various countries with various legal repercussions about that, so you have to be a little bit careful with this, what you do in which country and so on. And in some countries we have to have chat moderations in order to have chat. So that's the reason why in some countries actually the chat is only available at 8 p.m. in the night. Yes. But there is a certain philosophy that you simply do the chat, and if they don't complain, you're fine. And if suddenly you have legal repercussion, it's a luxury problem. Because then you're big enough that they can complain. And then you can afford lawyers. It's a strange answer, right? But it's true. Okay, any more questions? Yes?
How do you find people for the shopping basket tests? And do you do demographic analysis there?
I mean, find people is very easy. You just give our beta keys for us, right? We just do with a website or something, here have 10,000 beta keys and they make a lottery. We invite people. We have a huge mailing base. We have Uplay. Everybody who played a Ubisoft game, we have your email address. So we can basically email you. That's like, it's a really cool marketing thing as well if you invite people for closed beta tests. And you have to have testers anyway, right? Hundreds of them. And we reuse these testers. We reset the game, give them the games, tell them, listen, spend them wisely and so on, and then we get all the data. And all our testers get rewards for being testers. So when we go live and we reset the whole progress and they have to start again, they get something no one else gets. So in our game, it was a beta statue. So there's one beta thing in my zone which no one else has, just the beta testers. So this is the stuff you do. It's they just love you for doing this. And many players want to have early access. And now, I mean, since a year, you can be taught how to actually make money with this, because they sell alpha access now for like $60. I mean, sorry that I laughed. So there's this DayZ, right? Alpha, totally unplayable crap of shit game. But because DayZ before was so great, they made they sold 1 million copies. They made $23 million by selling the alpha access. That's a good player base. So selling early access might work. On iOS it's a little bit more different, but you use test flight at the beginning, and with test flight you just have an audience to actually do this, cooperate with the website, and you can do that. And then you do basically a test in a country. And even there you can give out stuff for free if you want to. Yeah. So, okay. Anyone else? No? Well, that was two long days. Sorry I brainwashed you, but I hope that the excitement for free-to-play at least is a little bit in your head now, and you will have thousands of questions and ideas, and I'm really curious what type of games we will produce in the future. Okay? Thank you very much.